You know what? I found myself asking myself this exact question more than once since I moved here. And I see a lot of content online of people asking the same questions. I think it's a common thing right now where people feel as though they're behind. And in this video, I just want to walk you through how I contend with it in my head as someone who, generally speaking, doesn't entertain that type of thought in my life. So here's the thing. As human beings, we are hardwired to compare ourselves to other people. This is something we've been doing since the dawn of time, and it's definitely helped us in our development. But in 2025, moving here and being here, what I've started to notice and why the question has popped into my head more often is because I am around this stuff almost every single day. I see supercars every single day. We need to move apartments right now. We're looking for a new apartment to move to. And I'm acutely aware of the kind of properties that are available. And it does call into question how well you're doing or how well I feel that I'm doing. And it's really interesting because when you start to look at some of the neuroscience and the studies behind this, what we typically do as human beings is we compare ourselves to people who we perceive to be doing better or worse than us. And the impact from a psychological point of view is also very interesting. If you're comparing yourself to people who are perceived to be better than you, that you think are better than you, and you don't take it in the right way, it can lead to low self-esteem. It can impact your anxiety levels, make you feel depressed. And this is something that I feel like you need to be very, very mindful of moving to a place like this, or just being in the UK, period. The opposite happens then when you're comparing yourself to someone that you feel you're doing better than. The ego takes over, you feel better, you have higher self-esteem. And this is the big thing. Ego has to be checked in this conversation, because the unfortunate thing about comparison is that you're only seeing what's on the surface. So with that being said, this is how I kind of rationalize my response and how I cope with the thought where I start to question where I am in comparison to other people, because I think the saying that comparison is the thief of joy is 100% correct. You can drive yourself doolally if you allow yourself to go down this negative path where you're consistently comparing yourself to other people and you're finding fault in what you're doing. So for me, the first thing is establishing what my baseline is. And if you don't have a baseline in terms of what do you aspire to, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live, and where are you against that baseline, I think you should, because it's a great way to sense check exactly where you are on your journey. And I have to stress your journey, because for me, I think back over even the past 5 years, my life has changed immeasurably. Over the past 20 years, my life has changed even more than that. And I think progress sometimes is slow, but progress is still progress. And when I think about my baseline in terms of what I aspire to, I want to have a comfortable lifestyle, I want to have enough money in the bank so that I don't have to have any financial worries. I'm not necessarily the type of person that aspires to drive a Lambo or a Ferrari. So with that in mind, why would I allow myself to be influenced by someone who is driving a Lambo and I don't know anything about their story? The second thing, and this is a really, really big one for me, and over the course of the years, I've tried to always focus in on to keep myself grounded, and that is gratitude, practicing gratitude. Look, it's very easy to look at what other people have and to start to question why you don't have that. Like I've already said, I think that leads you down a really, really bad path. But one of the things that does is it prevents you from really appreciating the journey and the progress that you've made and the things that you've achieved. We all have moments in life, right, where we wanted to do a particular thing or we aspire to a particular thing. We do it, and in the moment it's exciting, but because of the human nature where we're constantly thriving for something else, we often don't appreciate that thing after a while, and we settle into a new reality. We see this in lifestyle creep, and that new reality becomes the norm. And I think it's really important to kind of revisit what your norm used to be in the past, because that's how you really appreciate the journey that you're on, the thing that you've achieved, and to be able to appreciate the baseline that you set for yourself. Here's another thing. I always have to remind myself that it's important to be inspired and not influenced. Because when you really look at it, being inspired is a lot more powerful and it can be utilized a lot more than being influenced. And this goes back to my point of, if you are comparing yourself to someone who you perceive to be better than you, whether or not you take it in a positive manner. In the social media age, it's so easy to let it get you down, for it to impact your self-esteem, for you to then become depressed because things just don't seem to go right for you. It is way more powerful to be inspired than influenced. And so for me, in the example where we are looking to move apartments right now, there are places that I would love to move to that at this point in time, we have to seriously question whether or not it's the right move to spend that money renting a place, knowing that we have other aspirations in the next year, year and a bit, if we really like it here and we decide that we want to put down roots here. So there's context and there's nuance, and understanding again what your baseline is and what you're aspiring to, and appreciating the fact that you're on your own journey is really important. Because if you don't have that grounding, you don't practice gratitude, and you cannot remind yourself to be inspired rather than influenced, you'll just drive yourself into the wilderness. Speaking of wildernesses, if you do find yourself in a situation where you are comparing yourself and it is impacting your self-esteem, you're anxious about how you're going to get out of it, what you're going to do differently, you're feeling slightly depressed, I think it's important that you acknowledge and embrace that. We're all human at the end of the day. We're hardwired to feel this way. It would be weird if you didn't compare yourself to someone else that you maybe have seen online. But with that being said, there are things that you can do to help you feel a little bit more rich, if you will. And I can't promise that these things are going to work overnight. In fact, they're not going to work overnight. But if you take the next few notes into action and you keep up with those actions, I can promise you right now, you're going to feel so much better about yourself 3 months from now. Income. Income is really important because at the end of the day, if you make X and you spend X every month, or maybe even more, then you're clearly not going to feel as though you're financially stable. And when people throw around this word rich, I often feel like it's an indeterminate phrase for us to continue to use in 2025. Rich means different things to different people. But here's the fundamental thing that I truly believe people really mean when they say they want to be rich. They want to be financially stable. They want to know that they bring in X amount, their expenses are X, and what you bring in is surplus of your expenses, to the point you have the ability to invest and save and build yourself a financial cushion. That's what I think people really mean when they say rich, financial stability. And I think when we talk about income specifically, if you're feeling as though everyone is ahead of you and you're poor and everyone else is rich, I think it's really important to pay attention to your income first. Because if you're able to increase how much you earn, keep your expenses relatively low, you're going to feel so much more financially stable. And that's the first step, the first thing to pay attention to. I could go into all kinds of stats around how many of us in the UK don't have an emergency fund, how 1 in 4 of us have less than £100 in savings. I think the number is 1 in 3 of us have zero savings at all. We can talk about the reasons for that till the cows come home. But here's one thing that has definitely been a revelation for me over the past 10, 15 years and has transformed my financial landscape. So once you've been able to perhaps address your income, increase your income, being able to create some kind of financial buffer is going to lift the weight off your shoulders. It's going to give you a sense of peace. You're going to feel as though you're safe. Because as opposed to having that paycheck to paycheck moment every single month, you'll know that you've got a little bit of money there that prevents you from using things like overdrafts and credit cards and payday loans that can be really expensive, knowing that you have a little bit of security built up. Now again, this is not going to be a fix overnight because nothing ever is. But if you can get into the habit of putting some money aside to build yourself an emergency fund, you might start off with £100 to start. But if you can build it to 200, 300, £400, getting to the point where maybe you have 6 months worth of expenses, you are going to feel a whole lot richer. And again, going back to this theme of financial stability, when you get there, it is life-changing because you're able to make better financial decisions. You're able to think about finances not from a place of desperation, but from a place of safety. The final point I want to make in this video is this, and it's an important one. In order for you to truly feel as though you're making progress financially, you're rich, you feel financially secure, financially stable, it's of paramount importance that you understand how to make your money work for you when you're not working, i.e. your money working whilst you sleep. The truth is, the rich didn't get rich because they saved their way to wealth or richness, however you choose to define that. The rich and the wealthy understand how to allocate their money to assets, i.e. investing in the businesses that make the world go round, that provide the services and the products that are so important to our survival as a species, as a people. And fundamentally, the quicker you learn this, the quicker you're going to feel more financially stable, more financially secure, and this comparison game can stop. There's a lot of content here on the channel about investing. I'll tag a few videos up in the corners right here. Go watch them. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please smash the like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one.